Welcome back, everybody, to Renaissance Man Media. So I'm continuing with my series of doing James Bond, and now we're doing Casino Royale, which is great. This is my first time watching this movie in a couple of years, but most people hold this movie in high regard as far as Bond films, where they consider it one of the best. And yeah, for me, I mean, I gotta agree with them, honestly. Uh, for me, I was debating whether to put this like Skyfall like on that level, Goldeneye, and rewatching it again. I gotta say it stands up, and like it's really good. Like a lot of the movie, that middle section is just playing cards, and you would think that would be slow and boring, and it's really not. The way they stagger the action, like at the casino, where we do gambling for like 20 minutes and then cut, we go into something else. I thought was really good. Um, I think what separates this movie and why people consider it the best Bond movie or one of, it's the love story between him and Vesper. And honestly, there's stuff that like the first time I saw this movie was probably like 2007, 2008 maybe. I think it might have been 2008. I think it was the year I didn't see it in theaters. I think I saw it the year that Quantum of Solace was coming out, and I was like, oh, I actually never got around to seeing Casino Royale, and I finally sat down and watched it. And there's still stuff because up until like literally now, I always thought like that Mathis was a bad guy, and then I never understood why in Quantum of Solace he came back and it was like, hey, everything's forgiven, we're good. Didn't make any sense to me. So yeah, I wasn't sure about that. Now that being said, I had to Google it, but basically it got cleared up where spoilers. Vesper was working with Lashif the whole time. I knew she was up to no good. I knew that she double crossed him and was trying to take the money. I knew it was for the boyfriend. I guess I never realized originally, like, every time that she was like, oh, I gotta go talk to Mathis, she was actually talking to Lashif. And every time she was like, oh, I'm getting a text message, it was actually Lashif. And Mathis was pretty much innocent the whole time. So, but the movie doesn't really explain anything. He just gets like tased by two dudes and gets dragged away, and they're like, that's what we see him, and then he's a good guy again in the next movie. And I feel like they should have explained that a little bit better. So like the beginning of the movie, we're introduced to Lashif. At first, he's making a deal with some guys in Africa, I'm assuming, that are like, "Hey, you hold on to the money, you safely invest it, where like no one can touch our money because you're credible and we're not." And then we cut into James chasing the bomb maker. That action sequence, like that whole setup. I think they're in Madagascar. Really good stuff. The fighting like on the construction site is really good. Um, yeah, I don't know. Like overall, like the only slow part I could say is like when we're leading up to him getting Mr. Demetrius, like and basically getting his info, and then eventually going to the Miami airport. But even that stuff's still pretty good. I want to say this: if they're ever making like another Terminator movie, they could just hire the guy that's like doing the ellipsis job that eventually blows himself up. That dude, he has no expression on his face the whole time. He's just like this, and it's creepy. I said Terminator. Honestly, Michael Myers. Like if they want to do another Halloween movie, they could just get him. Um, but yeah, Daniel Craig. This was his first Bond movie, and I thought he did a really good job. He's like young enough because I think he was 38 when they filmed this, or 37. He was young enough where like you bought that he's a young agent, and I honestly think that's the right age to cast a new James Bond because I know right now people are debating like Henry Cavill, like he's too old because he's like 39 or 40, and I'm like, that's okay in my opinion. I don't want a James Bond that's like my age. Like I'm 31. I don't want a 31-year-old James Bond. I want a James Bond that's like I had to work my way up just to be a double O agent, and by the time you get to double O agent, you're still young enough where you can jack people up and you're in your physical prime as long as you work out, but you have wisdom. That's the thing. Most people that are my age, I'm saying including myself sometimes, we don't have that like awesome wisdom. Um, but yeah, so the villain, like let's talk about Lashif. So he's got some good scenes. I will say this, I don't ever people hold him in really high regard as far as James Bond villains. I think he's good. I think Mads Mikkelsen does a good job. I probably wouldn't put him in my top five Bond villains, maybe not even my top 10, just for the fact that I don't think there's enough there. Like, he's got some good stuff where he's got the rope and he's, hitting James in the nuts. Like, that's some good stuff, but I don't think it's enough where I could put him above some other people. Um, yeah, like I said, really what separates this movie is Vesper. Vesper I just saw On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and then I like a couple days before that I'd watch Goldeneye again, and those are I mean I hear mostly like those are the top three Bond girls, and I always like Natalia, but I have to give it to Vesper that you really do buy that these two are like in love with each other, so their flirting that they have I think both those actors, Eva Green and Daniel Craig, did a great job. So like stuff that's lacking in Casino Royale because they hadn't got to it yet was like there's no quartermaster, no one's replaced Q. Like the previous movie 4 years ago, Die Another Day. We had R who elevated to Q's spot, and I really like John Cleese as that character. I wish they would have brought him back, but they didn't. They wanted to be more grounded, and like Casino Royale, what makes it so good is basically like there's no flaws with it. Like everything works, and it's a very well paced movie. Like I said, I don't feel like there's a whole lot of slow stuff. The action or dialogue keeps building and building and building, and I don't really feel like there's anything where I'm like, oh, this is kind of dull. Like it's all pretty entertaining. Oh, Felix Leiter, I forgot what the guy's name is. The actor, he's also in the Batman movie. He plays Commissioner Gordon. He's really good. I used to be partial to the Live and Let Die Felix and the License to Kill Felix, but I would have to say I probably like this one more. I forgot his name, but I like his performance. I like how he says like I'm bleeding ships. He's like, hey, I bet you didn't know we were related. Talking about him being the CIA. Judi Dench's M, she's good in this, but nothing. I will say she's a little too like she has a scene where she's walking out of not a courtroom, but it's like they're meeting like the higher ups for the British government, and she's like just talking to Tanner, I believe, or she's talking to like her sidekick, and basically he's just like taking it, not saying anything back to her, and she's just like, "Where the hell is Bond anyway?" And back in the old days, he would have the notion to defect if he did this, and I'm just like, the guy's not even talking to you. It felt kind of sitcom-y. I didn't like that. So this is directed by Martin Campbell, who's the same guy that did Goldeneye. And I guess whenever you're rebooting a Bond series, that's the guy you need to get. Now, I don't know how Martin Campbell old he is now, because at this point, I think he was probably in his 40s when he made Goldeneye. He was probably in his late 50s when he made this, which tells you he's in his 70s, most likely, if he would be rebooting the new one. But maybe he's the guy you need to get for the next James Bond movie, because that's 2 for 2 in the last time they've rebooted Bond, that he came out with a winning movie that happens to be, in my opinion, a top 5 Bond movie. So maybe get him again. I'm trying to think. The action's good, but it's under control action in the sense of I feel like everything is like semi-plausible and we're not doing any crazy stuff. There's no satellites or anything like that, which I will say was refreshing. But the scene in Venice where like the building's crumbling, that's pretty impressive. And I'm imagining the way they did that was they had to basically build a one of those old buildings, pretend that it was like been in Venice the whole time. I'm imagining that's how they did that, and I'm sure someone's seen the special features. Either that, or they took an older build. No, you would have to. That's the thing. You can't actually bring a building down like that, so they would have had to build one from scratch and then basically do the rumble thing where it's made of a cage that you got hydraulics and you move up and down and pretend that it's going down. I'm assuming that's how they did that. Yeah. Okay. Am I missing anything? I don't know. As far as my rating for Casino Royale, I have to give it a masterpiece because as far as a James Bond film, like that's exactly what you get, and it's like made of the highest level. The story's like easy enough to follow. Like I said, the only thing that I think gets mixed up is Mathis, good guy, bad guy, what's going on there, and then with Vesper, like you understand that she obviously is taking the money and it didn't get deposited, and then you understand that she was doing it for a boyfriend, but they don't let you in on like it's hard to look back and go, oh yeah, that's when that happened, that's when that happened. It's just like I don't know. When I watched this originally like 15 years ago, I knew that she double crossed James for her boyfriend's sake, but I didn't really understand how far back she was doing it. I thought maybe at the end is when she double crossed. I didn't realize she was doing it the whole time. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. Like I said, for me, it's a masterpiece. And as far as where I would rank it on my Bond rankings, I mean, we'll get to that here shortly. Like I said, in the next couple weeks, we'll get to doing that. I would say it's probably in my top 5 just because of how, like, all these other Bond films, they have strong points, but there's always like, oh, well, that was a little slow, or I didn't like that part, or that part was cheesy, whatever. This movie really doesn't have any cheesiness to it. And a lot of the dialogue's really well done. And the stunts are done well, and there's a love story, and I don't say that as in like I need a love story, most Bond fans, at least that are guys, I feel like that's not necessary. But this is the one Bond film where like I feel like you actually buy that these two people, you know, are in love with each other. I mean, that whole thing they're talking on the beach and he's talking about like willing to give it up, and she's like, "You're serious?" He's like, "Yeah, like I'd give all this up, like while I still got a bit of a soul left." Um, but yeah, like I said, I would probably put it in my top five if I had to rank it right now. But we'll get down to the nitty gritty because it's hard to like in order to pick which one's going to be like your number one spot, number two spot, three, four, five. It's hard to like because that's the thing. Casino Royale has less flaws than some of the other films, but I don't know if it has like the same like moments where I'm like, oh, I love this moment. Like for me, Goldeneye's got probably more flaws than Casino Royale, but it's got probably more moments where I'm like, I love that. So yeah, that's it for now. The next one that I'll be doing, I think, is The Living Daylights, and that's a film that I watched for the first time a couple weeks ago, and I filmed a review for it, but I didn't love it. Oh, by the way, I meant to show you the Casino Royale case. Um, but yeah, Living Daylights. I'm gonna go back and rewatch it just because like I want to make sure that I got everything like firmly like that I understand what's going on, and then give you my review of that. And like I said, we're getting I think we're past the halfway point as far as Bond films. I think I just now hit the halfway point, so I think I have like another like 11 or 10. I don't know, maybe a little more than that, but we really only have I think A View to a Kill is the only one I actually haven't seen. Well, A View to a Kill and then The Man with the Golden Gun I haven't finished. So it's those two, and every other Bond movie I've either seen, before at one point, or like seen recently. The other ones I'm not as familiar with, like Tomorrow Never Dies. I think I've seen once or twice, and I want to rewatch it. But I remember it's Pierce Brosnan Bond, so I remember liking it a lot. Um, I think that's it. I think all the other ones I've seen fresh enough. Yeah. So anyway, that's it. I filmed on my phone this time just because I feel like the camera's better. Because my Mac camera I feel like is a little grainy, so hopefully this works better. I just we'll see how the upload goes and everything, and hopefully the audio. Hopefully you guys can hear me pretty well. But anyway, next review I think will be better, and that should be coming either today or tomorrow. But anyway, have a good one, guys.